Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Canadian Passive Investing Show. I'm your host, 𝗖𝗍𝗶 Benesocky, and I'm joined by my co-host, August Biniaz. We have another great show for you today. Please like and subscribe as it helps us build our channel and allows us to keep bringing you great content and expert guest speakers. Now, our mission is to empower investors to earn passive income through real estate investing. Today, we're joined by Whitney Sewell. He is the founder of Lifebridge Capital LLC. Whitney began his real estate investing career in 2009 and founded Lifebridge in 2017, acquiring 900 doors and 150 million in assets under management. Whitney also hosts the Real Estate Syndication Show, which is a daily podcast where he has now interviewed over 850 experts, providing cutting-edge tools and strategies of the syndication business. Whitney and his wife, Chelsea, are on a mission to help other families through the process of adoption by committing 50% of their profits to the cause, as they have personally endured the financial burdens that the process brings with it. So we believe this interview will bring tremendous value to anyone looking to build a thought leadership platform and passive investors looking to diversify their portfolio and investing in real estate private equity. So I would like to go ahead and welcome you, Whitney.
Welcome, Whitney.
My pleasure. Thank you guys for having me. We need to update that bio, by the way. We're well over 1,000 interviews now, but thank you all very much for having me on the show.
Wonderful. Well, we're really, really excited to have you. In a moment, we're going to get to that incredible thought leadership platform you have built through your podcast. But maybe we could first start off with you telling us about your background and how you got started in real estate investing.
Of course. I go back to March of 2001, and I say March because it was 6 months until we were attacked in the U.S. right, and September 11th. And so in March, I joined the military. I didn't know, obviously, that was going to happen, but you know what? I just felt like it was the right thing to do. And so my best friend and I signed up like within 2 days of each other, going in together, and then had no idea that in a very short period of time, I'd be spending a year of my life in Iraq, toting around a machine gun, praying every day I get to go home. Right. Unfortunately, not everyone in my squad made it home. And so I just thank the Lord every day that I'm able to be here. And but, the military taught me to have a never give up mentality. It's just not an option, to give up. Obviously, when you're in combat or you're in situations like that, you learn a lot fast, but it's not an option to give up. And so when I came home, I tried to figure out what I was going to do as a career. And I was not raised around entrepreneurs or real estate investors, but I thought policing would be a great segue or a great transition from the military. And it was. There was 1,200 applicants for 5 positions with Kentucky State Police, and I was blessed to have one of those. And I loved working the road as a police officer. But, about a year in, I got married, and I discovered that, hey, then the first whole year of our marriage, we just passed each other in the hallway. And I loved working the road, but it was obvious to my wife, Chelsea, and I at that time that it just wasn't what was best. There were guys retiring, making $40,000 a year, even after 25, 30 years of service. And so I said, okay, as much as I enjoy this is just not going to make it, for us long term. It's just not what's best. So it pushed me at that point to look for other streams of income. And this is 2009. And that's when I learned about real estate. And I started discovering things like Rich Dad Poor Dad, amongst lots of other books. But my eyes were open to the possibility, right? That, millions of people have built millions, built wealth, in real estate. It's not like 1 or 2 people had. So many people had done it. And I thought, okay, if that many people can do it, I can do it too. We can figure this out. But I was just thinking really about like 1 or 2 small rentals at the time, supplementing our income. So, and becoming or staying on the police force. So soon though, I became actually a federal agent, and that moved us from Kentucky to Virginia, where we still live now. That did increase my pay and benefits, better schedule, all those things. But I quickly reached a ceiling. And I was pursuing real estate. Actually, we had bought 2 triplexes in Kentucky before we left, made a ton of mistakes. And I look back, I can't believe the bank even gave us a loan, with what I know now. But they did. And we learned a lot the hard way, to say the least. Thankfully, we did not quit there. After moving to Virginia, I got up to like a 15 unit and thought we were doing something, right? Thought we were going places and buying larger apartment buildings. I looked at those 100-unit buildings and thought, I don't know who those people are that owns those. I just couldn't imagine being able to buy one of those buildings. But, I kept pursuing real estate. And actually, I was, most people don't know this, but I was also a professional horse trainer. And so I was training horses and professionally. I mean, it was like a dream. It was a passion of mine since I was a little boy. And I had reached like a really high level in that industry. I was doing clinics all over the country and training lots of people, selling horses for more money than I ever imagined, while still being a federal agent, full-time, still full-time family, still, had some rentals in the 15-unit. And finally, one fall, my wife and I, we were at the beach and we were just walking on the beach and we were thinking about, where do we want to be 3 years from now? And can we keep doing this? And it was just obvious at that point to us that something had to change. It just wasn't worth it. I was missing all the time with our boys. And we had 2 boys, Samuel and Elijah, and missing all the time with them, and my wife as well. I mean, I was working like more than 2 full-time jobs. And so we made the hard decision. We had a farm, we had the house we'd always dreamed of, and we decided to sell everything. And so we did. Within a month, we listed our house, our farm. I mean, 2 months later, we sold. I mean, the farm sold. It was gone. And it was one of the hardest days for us, like pulling out of that driveway for the last time. But that was the level of commitment that we knew it would take. We knew the horse training business, I could make a lot of money doing that. However, it was always going to require me to be working 80 hours a week. It was always going to require me to be the one doing it. It was never going to be passive. And so we just say, you know what, it's now or never. We're going to cut that off. We're going to just burn that bridge for now. It doesn't mean forever, right? So we sold everything and bought a small house in town. And I put up like 2 walls in the corner of this basement. And that's where our commercial real estate business was born. And over the next couple years, I practically lived in that office, and the podcast and our commercial real estate business, started there. But it meant, again, me working more than 2 full-time jobs. It meant my wife doing everything in the home, and it just her support. It was just crucial, in all this happening as well. And just our team, her being on the team, right? I call her kind of my hidden team member, and my kids as well, because I had to paint that vision for them as well, where we were going, because they knew they wouldn't see me till almost Sunday, most weeks. It was that intense, just traveling a lot, doing a daily podcast, doing deals while still working full time. It was quite crazy, but we're thankful the Lord sustained us. And now we have 150 million under management. Our team has grown a lot, and we're fixing to launch a big fund. I mean, a lot of things are happening now.
Incredible. Thanks for that story. And if I may jump in here quickly, when you talk about your background in the military and law enforcement, there is so much trust bestowed upon you when you are in the military and in law enforcement, and in the space of private equity as well, real estate private equity, being a fund manager or managing, being the sponsor of a syndication. There's also so much trust. All the investors put their trust into the sponsor. So that's great with your background. I'm sure, other than the military and law enforcement, teaching you systems and processes, it also kind of that trust being on your shoulders followed through in your in your now endeavors.
No doubt about it. Most investors will say, well, what should I be asking? And what should I know before I make an investment? I say, well, number one, you need to know about somebody's character, the deal and all that stuff about the deal specifics and market. That is very important. But if you don't know who you're investing with, it doesn't matter what the deal is or the market, and so that's why I share about the military and law enforcement. I do hope that shares things about my character. None of those things are easy, right? Or becoming a federal agent, to say the least. And so yes, you're exactly right.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your journey. That's quite
sure.
the journey. And it's ahead.
Sorry. I was just gonna say, he said one of his son's name is Elijah. That was your favorite boy's name.
My favorite boy's name.
So that was one of the names that you had on the.
You caught that. I was like, wow.
But one more thing I want to say is a question I have for you. So you're involved in real estate investing. You've purchased your multifamily, but then you're looking at these large ones, 100 plus, these large multifamily. And you're like, hey, that's where I want to be. Was there a particular syndicator or a particular person that you saw and you're like, hey, I want to model my system or use their blueprint?
So during that time when we were at the beach, I mean, so much was happening within like a 3-month time period here. We were selling the farm. I knew commercial real estate was the way we were going to go. But I was exposed to a few conferences at that time. I didn't even know that was really a thing, at that time. But I went to a few conferences and started meeting guys and gals who were buying 100-unit buildings, and they had only been in the business a year or 2 years or less. And again, my eyes were opened about just the possibility of what I could accomplish. I'm like, okay, if all these people can do it, I can figure this out as well. And so that's really the direction why we took that direction, because I was like, okay, I'm tired of looking for more tenants and toilets. I can't see myself managing more single family homes or duplexes or even another 15-unit myself, right? It's just not doable. But I could see myself building a team and scaling a professional brand and working with professional investors, even professional management, those things. And that just made a ton of sense to me. And the more I learned about the syndication business, I'm like, okay, it just hands down, it didn't make any sense what I'm doing over here. So we sold the 15-unit at that time as well. And so we got out of that completely just to focus on commercial real estate. But I didn't know my current mentor at that time, but soon after that, I partnered with 𝗖𝗣𝗜. And, I've learned a lot from Joe. I mean, we're good friends now. But at that time, it was crucial to have somebody like that in my corner that had done this, right? Had gone before me and buying real estate like I wanted to do.
That's
No, that makes sense now. The only crazy people to have a daily show are Whitney and Joe. So,
Joe.
So that makes sense.
And I love that you really went through the trenches to get started in your journey in the real estate syndication. And it's funny because August and I watched numerous of your YouTube videos, and we've gained a lot of knowledge through it. But maybe you could tell us how the podcast came about, and also the amount of organization and planning needed to run a daily show.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a massive commitment. It's a massive commitment. And what I tell people is that I overcommitted, and I did it on purpose. But I didn't realize the extent of how far I was committing. I don't believe at the time, but even the level of commitment for my family also. I don't think I could have known that up front. I tell people it's all about how fast you want to get there. Like, building your network as fast as you possibly can. However, it is not for everyone, because it is quite the task. But so in the beginning, though, I obviously I was working with Joe, and I thought, okay, there's no reason to recreate the wheel here. I see how it worked for him, and let's just go knock it out. Let's do it. I can figure this out, right? And it seemed that simple. However, I went to a couple of conferences, and there were two people that I met with, had dinner with at two different conferences individually. Both of them would be people probably everyone listening would know. They're very big names in our business. And both of them said, Whitney, you're crazy. Why would you do that to yourself? And so that made me question, like, should I do, a daily podcast? And I reached out to Joe, and he's like, that's why you have to do it, because it's too much work for most people. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to go figure this out. Let's just go do it. Right. But what I learned, and kind of even at a high level that I think is very helpful to others, is that by overcommitting, I knew that I could not do all the tasks. I could not do the audio editing, the video, the show notes, the posting to the website, all those things, finding guests, to say the least. I personally, there's no way that I could do all those things. And if I had been doing a weekly show, I would have tried to have done all those things personally. I would have gotten behind. It would have been halfway done. I would have gotten frustrated, maybe quit, right? But by knowing that I'm going to be doing 7 days a week, I had to build a team. And so from the very beginning, it just wasn't even an option, right? So from the very beginning, I had a team of 4 virtual assistants from all over the world. I had another VA that was in the States that helped me to manage all those people. All the people in other countries had like job specific things they were really good at, like audio editing or video editing or, different things like that. And so then this person in the States helped me to manage that and also help find guests also. And so I had to build that team. But what would happen is I was working like every other Monday, I was off work for my federal agent position. And those Mondays, my team knew that I needed to record at least 12 to 15 shows. And so I would record some days 15 shows back to back to back to back as hard as I could go. My family, we called it my marathon day. It was just insane, honestly. But that's, my mentality was just like, okay, if that's what it takes, like, let's just get it started, right? Let's just let's move forward. Like, let's not focus on how difficult it's going to be. And that's what we had to do. And so it made me build systems and processes from the very beginning, because I knew that it couldn't work any other way. It just was not an option not to have good systems. I mean, we started with 2 months ahead. I mean, we started with 60 days worth of shows before we ever launched, because I expected there to be hiccups, right? I expected there to be things within the team that, oh, somebody quits, or we messed up about this. We need a week's worth of time to catch up. And so, there were just some planning that obviously had to take place. And it took me, a few months, obviously, just to get launched because of the structures that had to be in place.
And now you're up to over 1,000 shows, you said?
Yeah. Now our 1,000th show will come out in about a week and a half, I think.
Great. Congrats.
Wow. Yeah, that's really, really incredible. Good for you. Because you're educating a lot of people out there.
Including myself. Right. I mean, that's something people don't realize. I mean, I get to, especially in the very beginning, I got to ask all the experts any question that say I or my team had. Right. Yeah. I mean, interviewing all these people. What do you think we're going to talk about if we have something going on I have questions about,
Yeah.
So that's the amazing part about being a host.
Yes, we're going to get into that as well to discuss that.
Definitely. And I wanted to kind of, with your podcast, obviously the real estate syndication show, the name couldn't be more descriptive. But the podcast is focused on a very specific type of investing, this concept of real estate syndicated investments. What was I just going to say, or what we call it here at CPI, real estate private equity.
Exactly. Yes.
So what was it about this particular topic that motivated you to start a podcast dedicated to it?
There wasn't one. I mean, it was hard to find information about the syndication business, or syndicating commercial real estate. It's hard to find great educational content. There's a lot more now than there were a few years ago, but still at that time it was hard to find, and I needed to niche down. I knew that to really create a great following, a group of followers who love what you're doing and just follow everything you're doing, the further you can niche down, the better. I mean, I even thought about just doing one type of commercial real estate, and calling it the multifamily syndication show. But then doing so many shows, I was afraid I wouldn't be able to find enough guests. Right. But having it just about syndication allows me to stand out just, in that industry. Right. And people that are listening knows that's who we're focusing on, passive investors and operators that are in the commercial real estate space.
Great.
Awesome. August and I have been in this space for the last 2 years, and every time we bring on a guest, it's like taking an online course, kind of what you were just saying. There's always these golden nugget takeaways from every guest speaker we've had on. Maybe you could talk to us about the knowledge you've gained from interviewing so many experts, and maybe some interesting stories that you could share with us.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I do so many shows. Honestly, it is hard to people say, "What's been the best show?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's hard. It's hard." Obviously, right? That's right. Of course. Some of the best shows though are sometimes unexpected.
Okay.
It's like I have guests who are very big name people, in our industry, and they're really good. And then sometimes it can be somebody that just got started. That's like, man, they just share all these things they learned about their first project. And it's like, that was so useful, especially to the listeners, or just from feedback that we received. I mean, I just think often it catches you by surprise. I had a guy one time that, after about and you and I briefly talked about this before the show, but every question I would ask, he would say, yes, no, yes. And finally, about 10 minutes in, I'm like, okay, tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you, So that doesn't happen too often, but you just have to be able to roll with it and try to pull out value, and think about what your listeners want to hear, what this person is really good at. I try to understand what someone's unique ability is, right? Like, what are they really good at? It's because that's what they're going to be most comfortable talking about. That's where they're going to add the most value. They're going to be less nervous, all those things. And so that's been important, or helped to create good shows.
Awesome. Now, alongside your podcast and your YouTube show, you also manage a real estate private equity firm. So maybe you could tell us more about your company, your business model. Who do you help, and how do you help them?
Yeah, appreciate that. Yes, Lifebridge Capital. Yes, we did start that entity, that brand, in 2017, and this podcast started not too long after that as well. But that firm, I mean, all multifamily, mostly value add. We're actually doing some development now, all in the West. We're in Colorado and Idaho, and hoping to grow into some other markets, hopefully this year. But, I'll say this, when you get started in the commercial real estate business, you have to learn pretty quick that it's a team sport, right? You're not typically going to close a, $30-50 million project by yourself. It's going to be very rare for somebody to do that. And you're going to go a lot slower than most people, unless you're not willing to team up with people or with other people that have other skill sets, right? And so for me in the beginning, I had to get really good at saying, you know what, this is what I am really good at. I'm going to hunker down on this and just do this as hard as I possibly can, get as good at this as I possibly can. And that's what I did. And then ultimately, I found somebody else that had complementary skill sets. And that as soon as we partnered, I mean, it was like we turned the rocket launchers on. We both had complementary skill sets. We've both been working in the industry, but in different capacities. And that, he had deal flow, and ultimately I had a network of investors. And so that allowed us to move fast. Closing, like you said, over 100 million in 2020. Never imagined being able to do that. And so, a few years ago, I would have said you're crazy. But that's, our investors are from all over the world, ultimately, mostly in the US, of course. But most of them are busy professionals, right? They're busy professionals, or they're retired, and they're looking to put their money to work. I find too, I have a lot of real estate professionals that are investing in our deals that, hey, they've been in real estate for 20, 30 years, and they're just looking to be passive now. They understand how, just the wealth creation component behind having real estate in your portfolio. And so that's, we're working with just hundreds and hundreds of investors, or thousands now that are in that category. And that's, who we want to help.
Amazing.
Great.
Amazing. And obviously having your thought leadership platform alongside of your active company has been extremely beneficial way to gain business and more investors, like you're just talking about, and grow your company. Maybe you can tell us about the experience with this, and also any advice you can give to anyone looking to start a thought leadership platform to supplement their active company on the side.
Yeah, it's a must to have some type of thought leadership platform these days, I feel like. And it doesn't, and you have to think too, like, it doesn't have to be a podcast, right? Like, you are doing a YouTube channel, but there's so many ways you can use this video content for numerous things. But you have to think about who your customer is, or who your client is, or who you are speaking to. And you talked about it briefly earlier, even just like thinking about the real estate syndication show. Well, we niched down, right? I could have gone further. And if I was doing a weekly show, I would suggest it. I would suggest even niching down as far as you can, because that's how you're going to connect with those people. Right. And even deeper than that, in our business, and even through the podcast or whatnot, it's about having a mission. It's about being about something bigger than just commercial real estate. And I know we're going to get to that, but just our why, our mission, that's helped us to connect with lots of people, and there's a connection there that's a lot deeper than just talking about business. Right. Yeah. And if you don't learn anything else from me today, it's like everybody hears about the know, like, and trust component. And that's one thing a thought leadership platform does in a big way. There's this assumed credibility, right? But not only that, you eventually are credible. You have learned so much over a period of time from so many people, but it's hard to build loyalty that way. And if you want to raise a lot of money and do it in a big way, you got to build loyalty. And an example that I use is like Apple. There's people that, hey, they got the MacBook, they got the iPhone, they've got the TV, the monitor. Anything that has the Apple on it, they're gung ho, right? Like, it's got to be the best product just because it has that Apple on there. There's extreme loyalty, and that's what you want to build in your commercial real estate business. And you do that by being mission focused. And that's what we've done. Podcast helps us also to get that mission out there, right? Say, hey, this is who we are. This is what we're about. And this is how we do it, And so a podcast or a blog or anything like that just helps you to ultimately be in the front of the room. Right? There's a different light that's shed on you as opposed to, say, standing in the back of the room talking to everyone, just when you came to let's say the meetup or the real estate conference for the first time, as opposed to you being on the stage and then talking to everyone. It's a very different place to be in. And that's what your thought leadership platform does for your business.
Incredible.
Right.
And Winnie, I want to kind of like dive deep into your mind and what your mission is. I know earlier as I was reading kind of about you, we mentioned your group has an incredible charitable cause. So I believe a significant portion of your profits is allocated to help families through the process of adoption. So maybe you can tell us how this came about and talk to us about that, please.
Of course. So when my wife and I moved to Virginia, where we live now, we had only been married, say, a year to 2 maybe 2 years at the time. And we went to this church, and this pastor was talking about how they had adopted and how there was 150 million orphans in the world and how it can cost $40,000 to $60,000 to bring a child home through adoption. So that was really the first time we were exposed to adoption. We grew up in a very small town. I don't think we had ever heard of adoption or knew anyone that was adopted before. But after being exposed to that, on our way home, the only question we could ask ourselves was, why would we not adopt? We couldn't think of a good reason why we wouldn't adopt and bring a child home through adoption, just because of the great need. And so it seemed so simple. I'm very thankful really to our ignorance of the process at that time, because within a week we turned in our application to adopt from Ethiopia. 2 years later, our first son, Samuel, came home from Ethiopia. A year later, our second son, Elijah, came home through adoption. And now we have a daughter as well, Eden Joy, who came to our family through adoption. So our family has just been so blessed, through adoption and our children. And we talk to families or couples so often now who just want to learn about our process and ask questions. But often we tell them that, how much it may cost. And they're like, Whitney, that's more than I'm making a year. How can they would be great parents, but it just seems undoable, right? It doesn't even seem reachable for them. And so that's where we started the Lifebridge Foundation. And yes, we committed half of our personal profits to the foundation to help families with that financial burden and helping them commit, helping them fundraise, and those things. So they can also bring children home.
That's incredible. What a beautiful story.
The longer the story goes, the more I like Whitney. We already liked and respected him, but to learn about his background and his experience was really been pleasurable.
Yeah, thank you for sharing about your story.
My pleasure.
Incredible person, and we're really glad to have you.
Absolutely.
So I guess now it's time to have some fun, Whitney.
Okay, let's do it.
We're going to start the next segment of our show, the 10 championship rounds to financial freedom. So you ready?
Let's do it.
Whatever comes top of mind first. Here we go. Who was the most influential person in your life?
Second to Jesus, probably Joe Fairless.
Great.
What is the number one book you'd recommend?
One recently that I've been recommending, I've really liked, is The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham.
All right.
Highly recommend it.
Okay. If you had the opportunity to travel back in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
You don't have to start small in real estate. There are ways to jump into commercial real estate.
Great advice.
And have a mentor to do it.
What is the best investment you've ever made?
Best investment? In myself.
Awesome.
Great.
Mentors, education.
What is the worst investment you've ever made?
It's a double-edged sword. It's that first, the two triplexes I told you I bought in 2009, worst investment, but we learned a lot. It turned out to be its own university, but financially worst investment.
How much would you need in the bank to retire today? What's your number?
10 million.
All right. If you could have dinner with someone dead or alive, who would it be?
Boy, that's a good one. Well, Jesus is the first person that comes to mind, but I guess second to him, probably, I was trying to think of, that's who I'm going to say. I'll say Jesus.
You guys might need a translator at your dinner, though.
Probably.
If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what would you be doing now?
Probably training horses professionally.
There you go. Book smarts or street smarts?
Street.
If you had $1 million cash and you had to make one investment today, what would it be?
It would be some type of multifamily fund.
Great.
Nice.
So I'm getting market diversification and cash flow diversification.
Awesome.
Check. That's a wrap.
That's a wrap. That was great.
Thank you, Whitney. That was really, really fun.
My pleasure.
Yeah, again, we thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time and coming on here. And we definitely know that this is going to, add a lot of value to our viewers. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so
My
much.
pleasure. A lot of fun.
And Whitney, maybe if you could just quickly tell everybody what's the best way to get a hold of you, please.
Lifebridgecapital.com. You can email me, Whitney at lifebridgecapital.com, or you can call or text 540-585-4338. Look forward to connecting.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on today, Whitney.
Thank you.
My pleasure.